Hello everyone! Last week we talked about the events around the Cataclysm, where Vol'jin and his people, they took revenge upon the Sea Witch, they moved out of Orgrimmar, and they decided not to join the Zandalari in their plans of conquest. The Horde was their people, yet the Horde is now under the leadership of Garrosh Hellscream, and Vol'jin and Garrosh do not see eye to eye. Let's begin, shall we? The Cataclysm was over, the world was saved, and the aspects declared that now the dawning of the Age of Mortals has begun. Warchief Garrosh Hellscream decided that the time had come for the Horde to claim what was theirs. The lust for war was burning in his heart, and the leaders of the Horde, including Vol'jin, were summoned to Garrosh's side. He informed them of his plans. First they take out Northwatch Hold, then Fedamore would fall, and then they would conquer all of Kalimdor. Of course, the other leaders had no desire to start a war which would lead to more bloodshed. They just dealt with the Cataclysm. Perhaps they would be able to take Fedamore and even Kalimdor as a whole, but places like Quel'Thalas and Undercity would be vulnerable and very hard to defend at the retribution that would surely follow. Garrosh would hear none of it. He would no longer listen to the advisors appointed to him, and instead he listened to those only loyal to him, like the Blackrock orc Melkorok. The leaders were the blades of the Horde, and he as their Warchief was their wielder. They would do as he told them to do, or they'd risk the might of the Horde turning against their people. So Bane, Vol'jin, Sylvanas Gallywix and Lor'themar, they did as they were told, and they prepared their people for war. What they didn't understand at that time was that Garrosh had changed. During the Cataclysm, he had thrown an officer, Cromgar, off a cliff for using dishonorable tactics.
Honor, Cromgar. No matter how dire the battle, never forsake it. Overlord Cromgar, you have disgraced the Horde. You have brought shame to us as a people. By my right as Warchief, I hereby relieve you of duty. You are dismissed!
Now Garrosh didn't care about that. He had his shamans enslave the elements, use molten giants to take down Northwatch Hold, and this was a clear violation against the Earth Mother herself, something forbidden by the Earthen Ring in fear of causing another cataclysm. Bane confronted Garrosh about this, asked him what he was thinking, but again, Garrosh didn't listen. This act pushed Bane into sending one of his runners to Fedamore to warn Jaina Proudmoore that the Horde was on the march. It didn't matter in the long run though, since Garrosh actually wanted Fedamore to prepare his defenses and get ready for them. He had his forces purposely wait at Northwatch Hold, the desire for battle burning in their veins, and nobody understood what Garrosh was thinking. Why did he give Jaina the opportunity to prepare? Why make a victory so much harder? The answer finally became clear when after days of waiting, they marched upon Fedamore. In that time, Jaina had been able to gather the finest the Alliance had to offer. Even the Kirin Tor and the Blue Dragon Caligos saw the need of defense, and they provided aid in the fight against the Horde. Within the courtyard, Vol'jin, Garrosh and Bane fought with the Alliance forces, as Kalec tried to use his ice magic to seal them in. Vol'jin saw what was happening. He warned Garrosh and Bane, to which Garrosh saw the time fit to call the retreat and unfold his plan. He was never planning to take Fedamore in an honorable battle. All he wanted was as many troops, as many powerful generals and leaders gathered, so they could wipe them out with one single mana bomb.
We're gonna turn this place into a sinkhole!
Bane and Vol'jin were disgusted with Garrosh's actions, but the Warchief didn't care. He partied in Orgrimmar with the rest of his people who cheered his name, while a few of them could not believe what had happened. They did not join the celebration. Instead, they met up within a shady inn of Razor Hill. Bane was there, Vol'jin was there, and although they did not speak with each other, a single glance told them all that they needed to know. They knew that Garrosh's actions were wrong, that this was not the path the Horde was supposed to be on. Now Melkorok, he found out about people meeting at Razor Hill, speaking out against Garrosh, and he decided to do something. The inn was blown up by frag grenades, and word of this accident reached Vol'jin. He had no love for Garrosh, and even though Thrall was able to convince him to stay with the Horde, he knew that it was time to go back home to their islands and meditate. Communicate with the Loa to hear what they thought about the situation, but before the Shadow Hunter could even leave, a canoe with a shaman approached him. The Alliance fleet was approaching for a counterattack. Jaina Proudmoore had survived the bombing of Fedamore and planned to flood Orgrimmar, and Garrosh released the Kraken against the Alliance fleet. In the end, Kalik and Thrall were able to convince Jaina not to go through with the flooding, and instead she used her power to save the Alliance fleet, ensuring Garrosh's defeat. But the Warchief wasn't done. Quite the opposite. He realized that he simply had to go bigger, more elementals, more Kraken, escalate this war and conquer the world for the Horde. Bane told Garrosh that he was loyal to the Horde, but he also warned him that there could never ever be another Fedamore. Vol'jin once again said very little at the situation. At this point in time, they simply couldn't speak out. The Darkspear lived very close to Orgrimmar, and to have the Horde turn on its own people, turn against the Darkspear, it would simply be suicide. As Bane took his braves home, Vol'jin did the same, and shortly afterwards, the mist around the land of Pandaria disappeared.
I received word that our southern fleet engaged an Alliance envoy. We chased the royal flagship until it ran aground.
Aground? Where?
Apparently, they found a massive, uncharted landmass, shrouded by dense mists.
And you let the Alliance get there first! Redirect the invasion fleet! General, you and your best veterans will pave our way. Storm the shore and paint this new continent red!
A small group was sent out to Pandaria to scout the land, while Garrosh and the Horde prepared the full might of their forces. Champions of the Horde became familiar with the Pandaren, the land itself, and the shot that it contained. 2 months after setting first foot of Pandaria, the rest of our forces finally catch up to us, and the Warchief himself claims a piece of the land and calls it
Domination Point!
Vol'jin doesn't trust Garrosh though, and he shows up as well.
Vol'jin, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be on your island kissing frogs?
What are we doing here? You bring this war to another corner of Azeroth, and I wanna know why.
Your lack of vision is why your people are still primitives, and your lack of loyalty is why I did not summon the Darkspear for this campaign. Look around you, Vol'jin. This land is rich in resources. Wood, stone, iron, fuel, and people. A show of might on these shores will make the Pandaren think twice about joining the Alliance.
All this bloodshed make everyone think twice about joining the Horde.
This is the difference between me and you, Vol'jin. I won't let my people starve to death in the desert. I will stop at nothing. Nothing to ensure a proud and glorious future for the Orcs and anyone with the courage to stand with us. Wait here. There is something you can do, Troll, to demonstrate your value to the Horde. A mission in the heart of this continent.
I will go, but only as a witness for my people. Someone gotta keep you in check, Garrosh.
Vol'jin was told to go on a mission and investigate the connection between the Mogu and the Saurok, but more importantly, this was a test and an opportunity for Garrosh. If the troll agreed with their plans, then he would be allowed to live, but if not, they had permission to cut the traitors' throats.
This is the chamber we're looking for. The Warchief has learned there's a connection between the Mogu and these creatures. Troll, you know all about this. Voodoo. What can you find?
Voodoo. These Mogu. They're working wicked dark magic here. The Sorok, they're not born. They was created. Flesh-shaped and bent. These be the blackest of magics, man.
Yes! The power to shape flesh, to build warriors! This is what the Warchief wants!
Garrosh playing God, making monsters. This ain't what the Horde is about!
He knew you were a traitor! The Warchief will annihilate his enemies! Strength!
The Warchief shows his hand. This be what the Horde come to? Killing its own? We can't let this happen. Champions, I need ya. Go back to the Warchief. Tell him I'm dead. Stay close to him. Watch him. You and me, we move to take him out when the time is right. Others are like me. You gotta find them. Swear the blood oath with me. Keep your eyes wide open. It be done. We brothers in this until the end. I'm gonna disappear for a while. Don't forget about me.
We take Vol'jin's blood oath and pretend that he's dead, while in reality he was actually found by his longtime friend Chen Stormstout and taken to the Shadowpen Monastery to recover. I've already done a detailed video about the events of Shadows of the Horde, but what you need to know about this novel is that Vol'jin was once again given the choice to join the Zandalari, as they too had made their way back to Pandaria to reconnect with their ancient Mogul allies and conquer the world. Last time, Vol'jin's answer was simple. The Horde was its people, yet times change, and under Garrosh's leadership it seemed like the Horde was not as it used to be. In the end though, Vol'jin saw how Shadow Hunters of the past turned their back on the Zandalari, as the Zandalari concerned themselves more about riches instead of their own people and the Loa. He also realized that the Darkspear Tribe is his family. The Darkspear Tribe is a part of the Horde, which makes the Horde the family. Garrosh does not act out of the best interest for the Horde. He does what he wants to do, and Vol'jin cannot allow Garrosh to harm his family like that. That is not someone who he was, who he is, or who he wants to be, so after taking his time to recover, to learn a few monk skills delaying the Zandalari invasion of Pandaria, as we too dealt with the Zandalari and the Thunder King on the Isle of Thunder, Vol'jin makes a return to lead the Darkspear Rebellion. Meanwhile, Garrosh didn't sit still. He went around in an attempt to gather more power, more forces, and in the process pissing off not only the Alliance, but also the fellow leaders of the Horde. We joined Thrall as he liberated the Darkspear on the Echo Isles from the Kor'kron, as Garrosh had the Goblin search within the Veil of Eternal Blossoms for an artifact of great power, and they actually found something. They found the heart of the old god Y'Shaarj.
I only sleep.
Back at Orgrimmar, he and his Kor'kron have taken over the city, trolls are being held at gunpoint, Zayla and the Dragonmaw have allied with Garrosh, and the time for a revolution is now.
Walk with me. Vol'jin been seeing ya in just a moment. The Warchief still believes Vol'jin be dead, slain by his Kor'kron assassin in Kunlai Summit. Vol'jin survived, but he still remembered the sting of a Hellscream betrayal. Darkspear never die. When Vol'jin come back to us, I saw he was changed. The light of a revolution be burning in his eyes. Now look around you. The Darkspear Rebellion begins. Hellscream's worst nightmare. The spark becomes a flame. The flame becomes a fire. The fire an inferno. We gonna burn our way to the gates of Orgrimmar. But we gotta feed this war machine. Stone, wood, oil, meat. We be needing them in large supply. That's where we need you. Go speak to Vol'jin. Prepare yourself. From here on out, we be asking more of you than ever before.
Look at us three. Back to the sands of old Durotar. It'd be just like old times.
Not quite, old friend. Times have changed. The line between friend and foe is not so clear.
Vol'jin has plenty of people to fight Garrosh, but he needs supplies, and you are the one to bring it to him. But this does not sit well with Garrosh, and he sends Kor'kron after you.
They come! Hellscream think his own people gonna roll right over. Time to show this Warchief the fury of the Darkspear!
Kor'kron and mercenaries attack Sen'jin village, but they're no match for the combined might of Thrall, Chen, Vol'jin, Darkspear, and champions of the Horde.
Hold! Let them run away. Hellscream will execute them as cowards if they go back. Sen'jin village is safe. Regroup! We press the advantage! Before the Warchief fortifies Razor Hill, we take it for the revolution and close off the road to the Barrens. Anyone who can still fight, come with me!
Wait, Vol'jin. Horde is spilling Horde blood. It's tearing me apart.
We need you, man.
I know. I trust you to lead the siege. I am needed elsewhere. I refuse to believe that all of my brethren support Garrosh. I am going to Orgrimmar, alone. Eitrigg, Saurfang, surely they are standing against Garrosh. I must find others.
You set one foot in Orgrimmar, Hellscream gonna bury a knife in your neck.
It's a risk I have to take. But if I am killed, please, watch over Agra and my boy.
I won't hear you say such things.
It has to be said, Vol'jin. If we don't make it through this, I want you to know you have always been my friend, my brother.
For the Horde.
For the Horde.
Darkspear, with me! We ride! No sleep till Orgrimmar!
The troops march upon Orgrimmar, but despite promising no sleep till they reach the city, the march comes to a stop at Razor Hill, where Vol'jin and Bane meet up.
It be done. Razor Hill is ours! The Warchief probably see the fires all the way from Gromash Horde.
Vol'jin, you're alive! It is true, then. An open rebellion against the Warchief.
Bane, we be needing your support. Razor Hill be but an outpost. The walls of Orgrimmar be fortified since the Cataclysm.
I must tread carefully. Many of my people are still within Orgrimmar.
Lor'themar be ready to strike once he finish with the Isle of Thunder, and the Banshee Queen need no excuse. But they both across the sea. Without your strength, we can't breach the city. I need Tauren arms.
We are preparing. I just need time to ensure the safety of my people. But Vol'jin... Garrosh has turned Orgrimmar into a fortress. You may need to seek out allies beyond the Horde.
Allies beyond the Horde, meaning that even the Alliance is invited to the party. After gathering resources, building up our troops, the siege of Orgrimmar could begin.
It thirsts. Bring it to the pools.
I have fought beside the Tauren, trolls, and others. You are nothing like them.
They are no longer part of my horde!
The world will hear of this. They will come for you.
Yes, I'm counting on it. The armies of the world will come for me. And within my fortress, they will face all the terrible creatures I have wrought. The boundless power I have mastered. And one by one, they will fall at my feet. Anyone who would rise against my new horde will be impaled upon the spires of Orgrimmar! Sindarin tried to bury your hate and your anger. But such power cannot be contained. It must be unleashed!
A time will come when you will answer for your crimes.
I answer to no one! All who challenge me will burn in the fires of my hatred.
Garrosh dumps the heart in the sacred pools, causing a gigantic explosion throughout the Vale, while also empowering the heart. From the sea, we conquered Bladeface Bay, and we made our way to the gates.
Our casualties are too heavy.
Don't be foolish, Vol'jin! You have no siege weapons left! You cannot win this battle!
Ain't no other way, man. We gotta stop Garrosh here and now. Else we'll be running the rest of our lives.
You may have defeated my war machine, but the gate still stands. You will not take Lor'themar today.
Anudora!
What? Korkron! To the gates! Now!
At them, my sisters! For Kalimdor! Don't think we're here to save you, troll. We're here for Kalimdor. Get forces inside the gates, while we distract the enemy.
What should we do next?
Bane, you and your warriors hold this junction. These heroes should forge ahead and flush the Warchief out of hiding.
What about you?
People be dying up above. The city is in chaos. I'm gonna finish it. Stop the bloodshed. I'll come back for ya.
Very well.
It's gonna be fine, Bane. We're gonna find Thrall. Gonna kill the Warchief. Gonna avenge your father.
Earth Mother protect you, Vol'jin.
Darkspear never die.
The combined might of the Alliance and Horde were able to break down the gates, bring down Garrosh's forces, and even bring the Warchief, empowered by an old god, to his knees.
You disappoint me, Garrosh. You are not worthy of your father's legacy.
His punishment is not for you alone to decide.
I won't let you take him.
We have all suffered from his atrocities. My people, more than any other. Let him stand trial in Pandaria. There, we will mete out justice for all.
The Horde needs its true Warchief. Now, more than ever.
Yes, but it was you that held the Horde together during this madness. It was you that protected our honor. From this day forward, Vol'jin, if you lead, I will follow.
I am not worthy. But I will give my all for the Horde.
I will speak to your Warchief.
I speak for the Horde.
Very well. The Horde has committed heinous crimes, Vol'jin. But some among you fought against Garrosh's tyranny. For that, I am willing to end this bloodshed. But know this. If your Horde fails to uphold honor as Garrosh did, we will end you.
Vol'jin has been appointed the first non-orcish warchief in history, and Garrosh is put on trial. Now, Vol'jin's role during the trial and during the novel War Crimes was not great, since it was Bane Bloodhoof who Vol'jin recommended to defend Garrosh. He did take the stand, and during the trial, Thrawn the Whisperwind, the accuser, showed the courtroom the events that played out between Vol'jin and Garrosh, the events that I already told you about. Bane, in his duty as defender, tried to show the courtroom that Vol'jin was not completely innocent. The conversation where Vol'jin threatened to pierce Garrosh's heart, he clearly threatened his own warchief, an act of treason. Now, regardless of the trial, regardless of what people might think about Garrosh and Vol'jin, in the end it didn't matter, since Garrosh escaped with the help of the Bronze Dragon Kairos, and this kicked off Warlords of Draenor. We stormed the Dark Portal in an attempt to stop the Iron Horde's invasion, and at first, the only influence that we saw of the new Warchief were his Shadow Hunters that showed up, as well as a cinematic where he congratulated us on our success.
Hero, our trust in you was not misplaced. You and the armies you command are now our greatest weapon against the Iron Horde. Lead us to victory, General.
It wasn't until near the end of the expansion, as we got ready to assault the Nan Jungle and Hellfire Citadel, that Vol'jin showed up to help. He sends players to the Iron Docks to recruit the Horde shipwrights, and that's about all Warchief Vol'jin has done so far. Now, time will tell what's in store for the Darkspear Shadowhunter, and although some rumors are floating around the internet about the next expansion, I'm not going to go into details during this video, since I don't want to talk about spoilers, and it's very hard to predict the future. I will say this though, during the novel Shadows of the Horde, Vol'jin has a vision in which he communicates with Bonsandi, Loa of the Dead. A growl rolled from Bonsandi's throat. We're so easily convinced to surrender, Vol'jin. I should be rejecting you. You be no true child of mine. But, Shadowhunter, know this. The battle you face be more terrible than any you have known before. You're gonna be wishing you had surrendered, for the burden your victory earns gonna be one that will grind you into dust. Vol'jin did choose the life of freedom and struggle, and on top of that, always remember,
Darkspear never die.
With that, we have come to the end of the story of Vol'jin. At least so far, I hope that Legion is going to give him a little bit more time in the spotlight and a little bit more story development. Ladies and gentlemen, I truly hope that you enjoyed it, since I had a lot of fun working on these videos. As always, subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time guys, see ya!